The Holy Father in Slovakia. Pope Francis continues his visit to Bratislava and celebrates a divine liturgy. National Catholic Prayer Breakfast. Around 1,000 of the faithful gather in person in Washington, D.C. Fight for the unborn. What President Joe Biden is saying about the new pro-life law in Texas. And a path to safety. How a pro-life filmmaker is working non-stop to help Christians and others flee the violence in Afghanistan. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, September 14th, 2021.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Pope Francis had another busy day today in Slovakia during the 34th apostolic trip of his papacy. Among his activities today was the celebration of divine liturgy used by Eastern Rite Catholics and Orthodox Christians. In his homily on the Feast of the Holy Cross, Pope Francis asked the faithful to gaze on the image of the crucified Christ and to remember the wounds our Lord endured were because of our sins. EWTN News Rome correspondent Colin Flynn has a look at the busy day and a preview of what comes tomorrow.
In Bratislava, Slovakia's capital, Pope Francis spent a day and a half first meeting with the President of the Republic in the Golden Hall, and then afterwards with authorities, civil society and the diplomatic corps. Then at the Cathedral of St. Martin in Bratislava, Pope Francis met bishops, priests, religious, consecrated persons, seminarians, catechists, and in the afternoon he visited the Jewish community. Today, the Holy Father went to Prešov, where he presided over the Byzantine Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom before meeting the Roma community in Koisk and the young people of Slovakia. Tomorrow morning, Pope Francis will visit the shrine of Our Lady of Sorrows in Sastin on her feast day on September the 15th.
È uno dei santuari più importanti di tutta la regione.
Sastin Sanctuary is one of the most important in the region. It was born like this. A Hungarian count quarreled with his wife and then threw her out of the carriage. And from this inhuman gesture, he then had remorse of conscience. They made peace in the family, and then he founded this place of devotion. So it is a place where you can pray very well for families and for couples. So it's a very current message.
From Budapest, Colin Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, here in the nation's capital, the faithful came together for an annual event held in person after 1 year off. About 1,000 people gathered for the 17th annual National Catholic Prayer Breakfast. Correspondent Mark Irons has a recap.
Guide all our leaders, our elected politicians, those in position of authority.
Prayers for the country and messages focused on recommitment to the gospel and uniting together in faith. This year's National Catholic Prayer Breakfast was held in person after being virtual last year. The prayer breakfast honored Jimmy Lai with its Christi Fidelis Laici Award, though he wasn't present to accept it. A Catholic, media entrepreneur, and freedom fighter in Hong Kong, Lai is an outspoken critic of the Chinese Communist Party. For his role in pro-democracy demonstrations, he was thrown in jail.
He's in prison today for a simple reason. His publications told the truth about China and Hong Kong, that communism can never tolerate truth or truth tellers.
Among today's speakers, Jeff Cavins, creator of the Great Adventure Bible series and first host of EWTN's show, Life on the Rock.
I truly believe with all of my heart that we can only change the world through changed people. And changed people are changed because they heard the gospel message of Jesus Christ.
Keynote speaker Bishop Stephen Lopes gave a message focused on unity.
God reveals himself to his people by gathering a people.
He's the first bishop of the Ordinariate of the Chair of St. Peter, Catholics in full communion with Rome who celebrate with some Anglican traditions. He said differences must not divide.
For Catholics, the gospel demands conversion. As Americans, the liberties we enjoy and the ideals that found our democracy demand that we fight for national unity. And by this, I mean real unity.
For the sake of his sorrowful passion.
Sister Mary Elizabeth with the Sisters of Life led the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. She said what we need now more than anything else in our culture is God.
So let us place all of our trust and our hope in him.
In Washington, Mark Irons, EWTN News Nightly.
And it really was an incredible event. After the prayer breakfast, Catherine Hadrian and I caught up with the former U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. We discussed the event and his recollections of a visit with St. John Paul II in the days after the September 11th terrorist attacks. Ambassador Jim Nicholson, the former U.S. ambassador to the Holy See and former Secretary of Veteran Affairs, joins us now. Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so we are here at the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast. Wondering if you could sort of give us your overview and your thoughts of this year's breakfast in person.
It's a great testimony of faith and of hope, and the message of the gospel and unity and trying to bring people together of all faiths and all stripes, really, grounded in the truth of the gospel and a wonderful witness, I think, to the Catholic Church, to the evangelism of the Catholic Church, not only to Catholics, but to all people of faith, and in the confraternity and importance of prayer. So it was a wonderful, enlightening admonition and with wonderful speakers, I thought.
It really was. How do you lean on prayer in your daily life? You're a great example of an excellent Catholic professional. How do you lean on prayer?
I think I've worn the Blessed Mother out. I've been praying to her for so long, for so many different things, and she's really come through for my family and me and allowed me to have a lot of challenges and to deal with most of them well, you know, both personal and professional. And so I think I have a profound belief and confidence in prayer. And I think if you're a legitimate prayer, you also have to have hope. Because if you have faith and you pray, you also have to have hope that, you know, your prayers will be answered, or that at least they're not going to waste.
Yes.
And God knows we have a lot of things to pray for here in our country and in our world. And the church, I think, is a rock in that scenario. I'm so grateful to be a Catholic.
Absolutely. You know, we talked about so many things happening right now in the United States and in the world. And over the weekend, we commemorated the 20th anniversary, a very somber anniversary of 9/11. I know that you had a very special interaction during that time. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I had a unique experience around that. I arrived in Rome in late August of 2001 to become the ambassador of the Holy See. And I had an appointment on 9/13 to present my credentials to the head of state, which is a ceremony every ambassador does to their country to which they're accredited. So on 9/11, we had the intervening events. But we kept the schedule and went out to Castel Gandolfo for a late morning meeting with the Pope. And he was ambulatory, so he came to the door of his study and welcomed me in. And it was just the two of us, and we had these pro forma diplomatic documents, you know, full of platitudes, and we just put those on his desk. And he said, "Let's say a prayer for the victims." He was grieving as much as I was. And so we said a Hail Mary for the victims. And then I was able to give him a brief that the State Department had presented for me to give him. because he's an important world leader, moral authoritarian, if you will, and he just kept shaking his head. And we established that they came out of Afghanistan and who they were, and then he looked at me and he said, Ambassador Nicholson, he said, we have to stop these people who kill in the name of God. Implying that God is not a zero-sum game. But it was a very important statement because it wasn't a privileged conversation, and so I was able to report that. And he was thus supportive of us going in because we'd been attacked, 3,000 people killed. And that really helped the United States build a coalition, as President Bush used to say, a coalition of the willing, to go into Afghanistan with us, with the blessing of the Pope, to ferret out these radical terrorist murders, which we then did. A lot of other things happened after that, but that was the advent of that. And most people don't know that the Pope gave that his blessing.
And a saint as well.
That's right, modern day saint. And we should never forget. And thank you for sharing that with us and for being with us today, Ambassador.
Oh, you bet. Pleasure.
That was a wonderful conversation. And today's uplifting prayer events really do contrast starkly with news about vandalism against Catholic churches here in the U.S. A new USCCB report says since May of 2020, there have been at least 95 attacks on Catholic churches, including arson and the destruction of statues. There were 12 attacks in California alone. And as we speak, voters in California are heading to the polls in a recall election. They are deciding whether Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom will remain in office. President Joe Biden appeared at a rally for the governor last night, and he took aim at the new Texas heartbeat law, which prohibits abortions once a baby's heartbeat is detected.
Take a look at what's happening in states like Texas. They just passed a law empowering complete strangers to become bounty hunters, going after women who exercise their right to choose.
Supporters of the pro-life law are excited and thankful because it will save unborn lives. And note, it does not penalize the women who seek an abortion. Well, House and Senate committees are demanding answers from top Biden administration officials. They want to know more details and who is responsible for that chaotic and deadly withdrawal from Afghanistan. Lawmakers also want to know more about plans for evacuating Americans and Afghan allies left behind. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken was supposed to testify remotely before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but decided to sit in the hot seat in person. He continues to defend the Biden administration's withdrawal strategy and blames former President Donald Trump.
President Biden immediately faced the choice between ending the war or escalating it. Had he not followed through on his predecessor's commitment, attacks on our forces and those of our allies would have resumed, and the Taliban's nationwide assault on Afghanistan's major cities would have commenced.
But Republicans say the Biden administration had months to prepare for its own decision.
Paraphrasing your own words from your opening statement, if after 20 years and hundreds of billions of dollars in support, equipment, and training, there's not enough for the Afghan government or the Afghan security forces to become more resilient or self-sustaining, what did we think was going to happen as that support began to be removed?
You referenced Chairman Milley, as I did earlier. Nothing that he saw, that I saw, that we saw suggested that this government and security force would collapse in a matter of 11 days.
This wasn't a failure of intelligence. This was a failure of policy and planning. We have the wrong people analyzing this.
Other Republicans say the real issue, how did it come to this? The chaos, the death of 13 U.S. service members and Americans left behind. Prior to the hearing, Republicans made clear they want answers.
I'd like to hear the truth as opposed to the kind of excuses we've been getting from this administration. It's been disgraceful.
Despite leaving Americans behind, Secretary Blinken praised the military and evacuation efforts. He adds U.S. officials are in contact with Americans and Afghans right now that still want to leave, and negotiations continue with the Taliban. House Republicans have called for Secretary Blinken and other senior administrative officials to resign, and some have even filed articles of impeachment. But Secretary Blinken says he will not step down. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Coming up, Pro-life filmmaker Jason Jones tells us how he's helping Christians who are in danger in Afghanistan.
As I mentioned, the Secretary of State was on Capitol Hill today defending the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan of those left in the country. Many are facing violence and threats from the Taliban, and some nonprofit organizations and individuals are working tirelessly to get them out of the country and find a new home. And joining us now, he is one of those incredible people helping those left behind in Afghanistan, pro-life filmmaker Jason Jones. He is president of the Vulnerable People Project and also host of the Jason Jones Show. Jason, thank you so much for your time today, and also thanks so much for what you are doing. It's incredible. For those who may not be familiar, can you tell us a little bit more about the Vulnerable People Project and what you're doing to help those in Afghanistan?
Tracy, well, thank you for having me on your show. The Vulnerable People Project, it's our little Catholic apostolate that seeks to defend the most vulnerable people in the world and those moments of greatest vulnerability. We were very active in Sudan during the genocide. We were very active in Iraq. And Afghanistan was a country we didn't have much of a footprint in, but folks didn't know that. So beginning in early August, we were overwhelmed with emails and calls for help. And so that's what we've been doing now for over a month.
Yeah, that's incredible. You know, we've also been hearing stories and seeing some horrific images coming out of Afghanistan in regards to the Taliban's treatment of certain people, such as women and journalists. Can you talk about the threat that the Taliban poses for religious minorities there, in particular Christians?
Yeah, well, I can tell you firsthand, we have been on the phone with families who are trying to move, especially in the early days when they were near the airport. One of the family members, an evangelical pastor's son, 12-year-old son, was shot for no reason while waiting in line to be processed into the airport. We're working with dozens of Catholics now that are in safe houses, that are in hiding. An alert just went out today that tonight the Taliban will begin searching house to houses in several districts in Kabul. We're working with people of different ethnicities and of different religions, but all that are being hunted by the Taliban because of these differences and or because they worked with the United States, and sometimes in just very small capacities. They might have been cleaning bathrooms in an airport, and yet because they did that, they're being hunted for their life today.
It is so disturbing to hear that. We hear more and more of those stories. Today, as you know, Secretary of State Antony Blinken was testifying on Capitol Hill about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. I want to get your take on that and your opinion of how the U.S. handled that situation and what you think comes next or maybe should come next.
Blinken needs to resign or be impeached. He was dishonest today in the hearing and then strikingly honest in other ways. I was surprised that he admitted that the Secretary of the Interior of Afghanistan is a part of the Haqqani network. In fact, he's the son of the founder of the Haqqani network, an al-Qaeda affiliate. Almost all of the members of the new government are members of al-Qaeda or al-Qaeda affiliates. We lost $80 billion in weapons. Today, Blinken continued with this dishonest narrative that those weapons were demilitarized. $80 billion in weapons, the equivalent of 80% of all aid given to Israel from 1949 until today. They want us to believe that several hundred soldiers and airmen were able to demilitarize in 10 days as the country was collapsing around them. Absolutely unbelievable. They have 1 out of 10 now, the Taliban, and really partners with al-Qaeda today, right now, have 1 out of 10 Humvees in the world. They have 3 M16s for every member of the Taliban. They have, I think they rank now 4 in the world with Black Hawk helicopters.
It really is unbelievable. You know, I'm going to throw out another number to you. The U.S. is now pledging $64 million in aid for life-saving support to the Afghan people. That said, as we know, the Taliban is in control of that country. We've seen how they operate. So, Jason, what do you think the chances that aid actually gets to the people?
Yeah, none. Absolutely none. In fact, we're seeing now minorities are being taken out, driven out, putting in vans and trucks, driven out and killed. Women are already being stoned. I heard, I think it was Senator Rubio that had mentioned just all of the horrific videos we see on Twitter. So you get all of this, well, they're going to be a better Taliban. They're going to treat women with respect. And the media is demanding, why don't they have more women in their government? How about why are they stoning women already? Why you can go to Twitter and see these horrific videos. Families that I'm working with that are in hiding, they can't look away. They're trying to follow this news around them, and they're finding it on social media, and they're horrified to see these images on Twitter that are happening right next to them. In some cases, people that we're working with are actually going out and recording this video so we can share it with the world. And then you have Blinken looking the camera in the eye and talking about how the Taliban is going to be our partners in human rights, our partner in defending women's rights. But then in the same day, today in the same hearing, he admits that the Secretary of Interior is a part of the Haqqani network, an al-Qaeda affiliate. They've been dishonest to us. Today, again in the hearing, Blinken said that they knew by early July that it was over. Well, it was on July 7th, I believe, that President Biden took to the airways to say we had nothing to worry about. That same week, already 213 districts had fallen to the Taliban. 116 the Taliban was about to take, and the government only had 73 districts. This was in the first week of July. It's like dropping an egg from a 12-story building, and when it's at the 6th story, saying, well, the egg didn't break yet. But Blinken knew, the president knew, they're being dishonest, and in fact, President Biden was, I guess, honest at the end of the day when he was asked about the chaos in Kabul on August 15th. And he said, well, this was baked into the cake. If this kind of tragedy and horror was baked into the cake, American citizens have been left behind. We're working with permanent residents, green card holders left behind, special immigration visa holders, these SIVs. When you hear them on the news talking about SIV, think of somebody who fought shoulder to shoulder with your brother, with your sister, with our friends, with our families that were fighting some of the most vicious terrorists in the global war on terror. This is who we have left behind. And they knew. They knew in early July, and I can't imagine they didn't know months before.
Yeah, Jason, I tell you, it is unbelievable. Unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for weighing in, and thank you so much for what you are doing.
Up next, how a pro-life group responded to a rally held by abortion supporters.
Late last week, a group held a rally in front of the Supreme Court building to show their support of chemical abortions. Pro-lifers heard about the event and decided to lend a voice to the unborn.
We are the pro-life generation! We are!
Chanting, "We are the pro-life generation," Students for Life of America held a counter rally. Their goal was to provide information on chemical abortions, including the harm it does to babies and their mothers. And joining us now is Brooke Paz, Government Affairs Coordinator for Students of Life of America. Brooke, thanks so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit more about the rally and the counter rally that you held and why you all felt it was so important.
Yeah, so we heard that this group called Repro Action was having a rally for self-managed abortion, and we know that as chemical abortion, but it's being reframed as self-managed to tell women that abortion is easy and safe to be done at home via chemical abortion pills. Now, we know that to not be true. They're actually 4 times more dangerous than surgical abortion and 10 times more deadly. More than 20 women, only that we know of, have actually died from the chemical abortion pills. So we were there to tell women that the truth is chemical abortion is not safe for them. No abortion is, but especially chemical abortion, that they have other options, that the abortion pill reversal is possible should they regret their decision, and really just to plant seeds. In those situations, it can be hard to have conversations because it's so tense, but we just hoped that what we had to say, the truth that we're speaking to these women, and also the testimonies that we were playing via speakers from women who've experienced chemical abortion and regret it, that those would plant seeds with women, and maybe down the line that they would come to understand why we're so passionate about life.
And it's so important to have that voice out there. You mentioned the physical harm that it can do to a woman's body. Let's talk about emotional harm that it can do to them as well.
Absolutely. Abortion is known to cause things like depression, anxiety, relationship issues, insomnia, just a variety of side effects. And those may be immediate, those may be down the line. I think many of us know women who've gone through abortions. A lot of people who regret the decision are just more silent about it. They don't speak about it, so we don't often hear that side. And that's why we're there. We're there to tell these women these stories exist. And if you're experiencing these things, if you're experiencing depression, anxiety from an abortion in the past, we're here to help. We understand, and we're not there to judge them.
Yeah, that is really important. And this was just coming out. Planned Parenthood Metropolitan of D.C. had just announced that it's going to start mailing out chemical abortion pills, making it the second Planned Parenthood in the United States to do so. We talked about the dangers emotionally and also physically to a woman, but there are also some that say having this access to these type of abortion pills causes harm in other ways to victims, maybe possibly of domestic abuse and also human trafficking. I'd like to get your take on that.
Yeah, so we call this death by mail because if women are not being evaluated by doctors before or after having a chemical abortion, and if these pills are just being distributed via mail, they're ordered online, that offers an opportunity for abusers to order the pills, slip them into a woman's drink, perhaps in the case of an adult impregnating a minor woman, a minor child, or in the case of human trafficking. They can use these pills to cover up their crimes. That's not pro-women, and we just really would hate to see that happen.
Yeah. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this with us. And thank you so much for all that you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Brooke Paz, Government Affairs Coordinator for the Students of Life of America. Thank you again, Brooke.
Thanks.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.